To my left, we have our acting mayor, Terry Murphy, who also represents Ward 2. To my right in the chambers here, we have Linda Vacan, represents Ward 5. Online, we have Councilor Hernandez, who represents Ward 4. And I think we also have Juan Anderson Burgos, who's the vice chair of this committee, who represents Ward 6. I'd like to move to the first item on the agenda.
I'll make a motion to take up item 1 and open the public hearing.
Motion has been made and seconded to move to item number 1 and open the public hearing. This is for a zone change application for Ivan Troshchiy to change from RA to RO at 405 Ingleside Street to rezone in a manner consistent with development patterns in the area. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. And we are joined by the planning board to open up their meeting.
Yep, thank you. Good evening. We have a full membership planning board here this evening, either remotely or here in person. So this time I'd like to...
Mr. Kelly, I'm not sure if everybody's in attendance here.
Yeah, Tony and I are here.
Oh, in person, okay.
Yep,
Apologies.
yep. So we've got a full membership. So this time I'd like to entertain a motion to open a public hearing of the planning board for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021. Take up a request for a zone change from RA to RO for 405 Ingle Street. Ivan Troshchiy is the applicant.
So moved.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
So I believe that we're joined by Mr. Troshchiy. Is that it?
This is Mr. Troshchiy here. My name is Isaac Fleischer. I'm legal counsel for Mr. Troshchiy. And Two Real Estate LLC is the property owner that Mr. Troshchiy is affiliated with.
We can't hear them.
Yes, thank you.
Can't hear them.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was addressing the right people who were in the chambers here with us. So at this point, we have Ivan Troshchiy looking to do a zone change from current RA to propose RO. And it says here that the property is located in an area that has become increasingly commercial over time, and the parcel already abuts the RO district to its north and west. The parcel is located on Route 5, a busy road with no sidewalks and a speed limit of 45 miles per hour. A residential use is no longer the highest and best use for the property, and rezoning the parcel as RO would be consistent with development patterns in the area and would promote a health, safety, and welfare of the community. We are joined in the chambers by Mr. Troshchiy and his attorney. If you would like to come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. You could also give an overview of what you're looking to do here. You might have to turn the microphone on. There's a button on the top that slides. And then just give it a little tap. I think you need to... Thank you.
Yeah, it was already on.
And feel free to adjust it so it's comfortable for yourself.
Thank you. My name is Isaac Fleischer. I'm an attorney from Bacon Wilson here on behalf of Mr. Troshchiy and Tim Real Estate LLC, the property owner. I think you summarized it pretty well from our initial application that our request for a zone change from RA to RO is based on the development patterns in the surrounding area. I don't know if you have copies of the locus map that was included with the application. I have a couple here, but it does help to see that they're surrounded by a substantial amount. Here, do you want me to?
It would be.
Yeah, we don't actually have it here.
I have two. You'll have to share. Okay. No, I don't.
I think you could leave one on the table and one to the planning board members, and we could...
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's the first
I
time I've
understand.
come in person in a while. I'm used to just being able to share a screen.
Right.
So yeah, as the red area on the zoning map there is the RO district. The green is the RA district. So as you can see, there is a neighborhood, a residential neighborhood that's kind of to the east and north of this parcel, but the topography of that area really separates that neighborhood from 405 Ingleside. It's across the street from 405 Ingleside is just a guardrail, then a steep hill that goes down to a residential neighborhood that's on Main Street, where Ingleside Street is still primarily professional offices and a couple of residential units, but some of those are also running home-based businesses. So the RA district, as you know, is for single-family homes and agricultural uses. Under the current zoning ordinance, the minimum parcel size in the RA district is 20,000 square feet. This parcel is actually non-conforming. It's a pre-existing non-conforming parcel. It's about 14,500 square feet. Under the RO district, it would actually become conforming, where the minimum parcel size is 10,000 square feet. Most of these, in this area, these are mostly smaller parcels that are clearly no longer appropriate for agricultural use, and they could continue to be used under the RO district. They can still be used for residential purposes. It just expands, the RO district would expand uses to private offices and medical clinics that are under 2,500 square feet. Are there any questions?
I just want to make sure that while I'm looking at the map, I'm looking at it correctly. So the parcel 002 is the one that has the blue outline around it, correct?
Yeah, the blue, I'm not sure if it's, the blue outline is 405 Ingleside Street. That's the parcel that we're asking to be rezoned. And it's to the west there is, I think there's a nursing home, I believe a dialysis clinic, is that correct? To the north is landscaper offices. And if you were to zoom out beyond that to sort of the south and west, you would see the whole Ingleside Mall area with all of those, all the commercial businesses that surround it. And this is actually quite close to the border with West Springfield. So it's on a state road close to the border of the city with a number of commercial uses in the surrounding area. So we feel that rezoning it would be consistent with the surrounding area and the trend of development.
Thank you. We do have a question from Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. Just looking at your depiction there, it looks like two of your immediate abutters are in the RO zone, if I'm looking at it correctly? Is
I
that,
believe it's one. Sorry, can I?
No, it would be the hospital
so
and the abutter to the north.
from the picture, it appears to be two, but I just want to confirm.
So immediately, I'm sorry, I'm mixing up. We're going back and forth between RA and RO. So immediately to the south, there is one abutter that is RA, and then I'm sorry, you said RO. There are two abutters that are RO.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that I was interpreting your area and the abutters in the way that you meant.
Yes, that's correct.
And if I can ask one more question.
Absolutely.
So, your use in this would fit in the RO for you, what you're intending to do?
His proposed use would be allowed as of right in RO. His proposed use would be like a dispatch center for a car service. Am I describing that right?
At the microphone, please, and
To the extent that it's of interest to the council, I can have him describe his intended use.
That would be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Okay, I'll have him say it in his own words.
you will just need to list your name and address for the record when you come to the microphone.
My name is Ivan Troshchiy. I live in 10 Concord Avenue, Norwood, Mass. And what was your question one more time? Can you?
So in the RO zone, what would be the use that you would be seeking to expand at the site from the current RA?
Yes. The original plan for RO was to have a call center, or whereas why Isaac said is dispatch center, because basically they're going to work dispatchers, and we're planning to follow the RO zone and have the dispatchers to come to this location and work at the desk stations. So, yeah.
And so how many of these folks would you see yourself having there?
All depends how it's gonna go, but I'm thinking about up to at least 5 dispatchers.
And is this for like cab or other service?
Yeah, we're going to provide the service when we're going to inform the clients about the scheduled appointments and cancel appointments. That's the primary goal for that center. Appointments mostly medical appointments when the people schedule in Massachusetts. There's constant ongoing changes with the doctors and offices, and sometimes medical facility cannot handle that type of demand, and that's why.
That's interesting,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So in terms of I think there's some more questions for you, Mr. Troshchiy. So in terms of dispatching, it's dispatching appointments. So as an appointment becomes available, that is dispatched to somebody who's waiting in line for like an opening, or are you dispatching rides for patients? I'm just unsure or unclear about what is actually being dispatched.
Yes. When the people schedule their appointments, they are only for people with attached rights together will be informed about their appointment being rescheduled, and your ride will be at the different time and the date. So that's...
So you're providing like a cab service for medical appointments? I'm sorry if I'm being a little bit obtuse here. I'm just not getting a clear picture.
Yeah. We do provide the third-party service.
Mm-hmm.
So companies can hire us,
Mm-hmm.
so we can do this job for them.
So you're contracted by the medical offices to provide rides for their patients?
Correct.
Okay. And so the calls for dispatch are coming from the medical providers, and then you're basically working with different vehicles and their schedules, and you will have vehicles on site?
Yes,
It's not
correct.
just the call center, you'll have vehicles on site?
That's a whole different thing.
What's that?
That's a whole different thing.
I just want to recognize that I see Counselor Anderson Burgos and Ms. Lopez's hands up, and Counselor Murphy had his hand up as well, so there is a queue. I'll get to you guys in a moment.
Could you repeat one more time?
Sure, so at this business that you want to establish, is it basically like a cab company and the medical providers are calling you to dispatch rides for their patients? Or is it a call center that's just scheduling the rides?
Yeah, that will be the second. It's a call center that's going to schedule and change their rights, and as a additional, their people appointments. Inform about their appointment being rescheduled and time change. And
Okay, so at your location, you're not providing the actual rides, you're just providing the call and scheduling service?
correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Council Murphy?
Yeah, Ivan, come on back. Come on back. How you doing?
How are you? Good?
I'm okay. We've met before, so.
Yes.
Couple of things here. So as of right now, you're not in operation anywhere, am I correct? Right now, you don't have this dispatch center anywhere else in Holyoke, right?
We did start it. Right now, I have 2 dispatchers that working from home, but they wish to be more productive, to work in the office. Yeah, so we,
Okay.
yeah.
And how many hours a day would the operation be in exist? How many hours would you function each day?
Mostly, it's if we look at the operational hours of any medical facility, it's usually from 8 to 5.
Okay. And so I just want to make sure I got this totally straight. So I've got an appointment at Hospital X. We won't mention any hospitals right now. Hospital X. And I'm scheduled for tomorrow at 11 o'clock, and they want to cancel. So if I'm hearing you correctly, they're going to contact you to contact me to tell me that my appointment is being changed and I need to reschedule. And then I'm coming back through you to reschedule?
No.
No.
We let you know about the change,
Yeah,
and then you, through your provider, through already, through your doctor or
Yeah.
the place you're going to look for the better time that's gonna fit the doctor and your schedule. So you're gonna we are working with existing appointments that been scheduled.
okay. But you're not, I don't hear a case where you're providing transportation. You're just working with the medical facility and the patient to get the schedules coordinated.
Yes, when
Okay.
we only working with those clients that would like to attach to their appointment transportation service.
Okay.
So we're just we think about the combo, about combination, appointment attached to the transportation service and vice versa. So we're going to inform you about the changes.
Yep.
And also that the right will be changed accordingly to your new appointment.
Okay. Okay, and one last question, because I know when you came in before, we were looking at basically selling cars or repairing cars along that line.
That was
So,
a long time ago.
yeah, no, you're too young to say a long time ago, but,
Feels like.
is there any intention to maintain a residential as well as an office, or are we talking just office?
I would like to keep it in case I'm will be working late because I will be also there, and so I can have a place to leave and
Okay,
be productive.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Is he still standing there? Just want to make sure. I'm gonna be addressing him.
Oh, he can come back.
Okay, I
Sorry.
have to go some point.
It's up, there's a lot going on here, and I'm trying to make sense of this. First of all, thank you for deciding to make a decision to move a business here. Thank you very much for that. But again, there's a lot of information, and I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm pretty sure a lot of the people watching as well. So I need to understand how many vehicles, if any, and this is vehicles outside of the employees that will be driving to the facility, how many company vehicles will be at this property?
Will be employees, will be, of course, my vehicle.
So will your employees be driving the company vehicle to the business?
Okay, there's none,
So there's no company vehicles?
0.
Zero, okay, so that makes sense. So then your employees will use their own vehicles to conduct the transportation? Is that what your business will be doing?
No,
Awesome, okay. All right. My other question, so then altogether, the only vehicles that should be at this lot should be the physical people who are working for your business, am I correct? So if there's 4 people working that day, there'll be 4 vehicles?
correct.
Okay. And at any given time, what is the maximum of people that will be at this business? The max employees you will ever have in that business? Because I'm assuming you're not gonna have customers coming, you're going to physically pick up the customer, or have the customer be picked up, patient, whatever you wanna call them at this point, from where they live to the hospital and then back to where they live, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how many people will be in that business, located at?
Angles of 405. 405,
I will
max.
I will repeat the been question earlier, up to 5 people, at least 5 people.
Okay. All right, thank you. That was my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lopez.
Hello. Thank you again for your clarification, but I'm a bit confused because when you came to us a couple months ago, you voiced that you wanted a used car dealership. It was voiced by residents in the neighborhood that they were not happy with that. We voiced in our meeting that that would not be something appropriate for that area. So my question is, why does it have to change from RA to RO if you're just having a dispatching center? Because in RA, you can do transportation, public bus. So I'm just not sure if you're gonna, for me, it sounds a bit deceitful. It sounds like we're gonna change to RO, and then when I feel like it, I'm gonna sell used cars, me personally. That's what it sounds like to me. So I'm a little confused about having a call center that's gonna switch or might switch into something that you already originally planned. So I'm a little confused and uncomfortable with how this is being presented because it's not a clear picture of exactly what's gonna happen. It's like maybe it's a call center, maybe they have some cars, my people already have their cars, there's only gonna be 2 cars. So I feel like there's a long-term plan that we're not seeing. So I just wanna make sure for clarification purposes, if this is what you're doing, what would be the reason to change it to RO if under RA, we still have stuff like medical clinics, transportation, taxi, like, so I'm not really sure why would that need be? If anybody can help me clarify that.
If it's all right, I'll respond.
And so this is Attorney Fleischer speaking.
Thank you. So when Ivan previously applied for a zone change for this site, he was applying to change it to the business highway zone so that he could operate a car sales business there. I wasn't there, but my understanding is there was pushback, and he's changed his plans. He's now asking for just a change to RO, which is much less difference from the current zone RA. And he's also changed his plans for the use. The reason that he's still asking for a zone change is because the call center that he's described would be categorized as business or professional offices, which are allowed in RO and are not allowed in RA. I also want to just clarify that as a zone change, his reason for requesting the zone change is so that he can operate this call center. But the truth is that as a zone change, whatever use is allowed in an RO zone, it would be allowed even after Ivan no longer owns the property. So what his intended use for the property is certainly of interest to the council, important, and we want to be as transparent as possible. But I also don't want to mislead anybody into saying that it will only ever be used as a call center. It will be used for whatever is an allowed use in the RO zone. And I think I mentioned in the beginning, but I'm just going to mention it again, that the differences between RA and RO there's not a lot of differences. And the primary ones are that in RO you can do multifamily instead of single-family residential dwellings. And in RO you can do these under 2,500 square foot business or professional offices and medical offices and medical clinics. So those would be the other uses that would be allowed there if another owner were to take over sometime in the future.
Thank you.
Okay,
One more time if I can.
we have a queue.
Okay.
So I have Mr. Dollywall, and then Mr. Kelly, and then back to Council Murphy.
Same question Rosanna asked you. So, before he was a car dealer, you guys want to do it, and now you come up with this plan. But when he's speaking about the plan, he couldn't clearly tell us what is the business is going to be. What I understanding is between car service, medical car service, and doctors. So he's a middle person who's doing the job for them, because it's only for the patient who use the car service. It's not for the regular person, if I'm understanding, right?
You're correct that he would be acting as a middleman between the medical offices and patients and the car services, really.
So he say he have that business already, he operating for the home. Where is that business is?
He mentioned that there's 2 dispatchers operating out of their homes.
Yeah, I know, but where is it? Which city?
They're currently located in Westfield and in Worcester County.
So these days, what's going on with the COVID, everybody happy to work from home. Then why he need to spend extra money to open a business to provide that service?
Do you understand that question? Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I realize that that when all of us, when you let me explain that way. When you go to the office, when you meet your coworkers, when you have the agendas, when you have the plan, when you see that everything, it's from my perspective, it is more efficient and more productive. Everyone when everybody is under the same plan under the control. They have any issues they can address right away. They don't need to call and try to reach if someone will not respond with like supervisor, how they're gonna reach, how to solve the problem. It's more difficult than I realize is more difficult. And when everybody is working in the office as a team, that will bring the to the point that everybody is on the same page, first of all. I'm talking about these little small details that coming from my experience working from home, and I realized that for that type of service to have a place where everybody get together and working as a team, same time, and have any type of questions could be solved very, very fast. And that, for me, just makes sense. Rather have people working from their house, and sometimes they have different approach from the basic strategy and company meetings, that sometimes it's easy to create to solve one of the issue here or there, right in the same spot. So answering your question, why we just cannot stay home and do the same thing, right? Why we need professional office to bring everybody together and operate as a one team. That's the good question. It's the different styles. One style, you can be at home. One style, you can work from office. And my vision is to have an office, and but in the same time, you can do it from home as well. But my idea, and again, my vision for future is to have and establish the professional office, and that's why we propose the change that earlier Isaac described.
So, as an existing business, are you going to move that to Holyoke? Are you opening a new business? And if you are, what is the name of your current business, if you don't mind telling me?
Yes, we call STS Inc.
So that's the name of the business? That's the name of the service you're providing to the medical facility and the customers?
That's the business name that we,
No, that's your corporation, right? But what's the name of the business?
the,
The STS
Yeah.
Inc., that's your corporation, right?
yes,
And what's the name of the business? As doing business as?
okay, yeah, that's the name of the
That's the
business.
name of the business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly?
First, I'd like to thank your attorney for clarifying the fact that we're looking at a zone change, and it's easy for us to get caught up in the present use being proposed, but we really have to look at all the potential uses in the future for the zone. And just probably to clarify the fact that my understanding is that part of what you'll be offering will be transportation, for folks that want transportation, probably to and from a medical appointment. And the people providing that transportation will be using probably their own vehicles, and those vehicles will be parked at their own homes. They would not be parked on your business property. Am I correct there?
The vehicles will certainly not be parked at 405 Ingleside.
Okay.
They're
Elsewhere,
contracting
perhaps.
with other companies.
Okay, yeah. So they won't be on this particular piece of property. They'll be elsewhere.
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
And then Council Murphy.
Yeah, just, while you're looking at 4 or 5 employees now, if things went really well, you're capable of having 10 or 15 employees. Am I correct?
Well, they are limited to 2,500 square feet of office space, and I don't know how many employees could function well in that space.
Well,
I don't know if that answers your question or not.
no, it doesn't, but that's it. I'm going to assume, I'll take a 10-foot by 10-foot cube, which our many offices have done in the past, so I can assume you could have at least 15 to 20, if not 25, and as I recall, when we toured, I would think the parking is able to hold 15 at least pretty comfortably. Isaac, right? 15 potential parking spots you would be able to handle? I'm not saying you're gonna do it, but we could do it.
Yeah. He's not sure how many parking spaces you could fit there.
Yeah.
His current plan, 4 to 5 employees, he
Yeah.
knows there's
Yeah.
plenty of space for that.
Yeah, and I'm, based on my recollection of my visit, I think he could certainly do more than that. But the only other thing, and based on what I've just read, I don't see any major, where he could do the car dealership or anything like that based on this, so. But I would hope that the planning department just kind of takes a look and makes sure that we're not, if we do this, we're not potentially creating a situation that will be detrimental to those still in that neighborhood, so. But I'm keeping an open ear on this one.
Thank you, and I think I just want to, because a number of scenarios were stated, I just want to make sure that we have it right. The business is just a call center,
Correct.
and essentially they're providing 2 separate services or both at the same time. One service is rescheduling medical appointments, one service is scheduling transportation, and you could pair your medical appointment with the transportation. Okay. So I think we've reached the point where we should open the public hearing to the public.
Yep.
To see if there's anyone who wishes to speak in favor or against this project.
So moved.
Moved.
Motion has been made
We're
Second.
in a public.
and seconded?
We're already there.
Okay. So then, is there any member of the public who would like to speak in favor or against this project? We're not seeing any in the chambers here. Are there any online?
If you are on phone and wish to speak, you can hit *9, or if you're on a device, look for the raised hand feature.
I would just like to ask to the planning folks if, when they're looking at this application, they could look at the parking and let us know what would be the maximum number of spaces, given the location and the logistics there.
I think when the last time they want to change to the used car dealership, I think they was saying 13 to 15 parking lot was
Okay.
there.
Okay, so you
So if
think,
I'm not making mistake,
so we have that in the record? So
Yes.
15, you think?
between
But we can
13
look
and
it up,
15.
right? So we have it. Okay, thank you.
And the abutters have been notified, right?
Yes, it's been publicly noticed.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to double check.
So nobody online? Nobody's online? Okay, so seeing that there's no one online either, I think we can entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
The motion has been
Second.
made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. The public hearing is closed for the ordinance committee.
I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing of the Holyoke Planning Board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so this has been closed for discussion here. The next step is a planning board reviews the proposal and application. They send us a recommendation of whether or not to adopt the zone change. Then this committee reviews that recommendation, and then we make a recommendation to the full city council. So it will be probably 2 months before we get a final decision.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on in the agenda, we are still in joint hearing for several other items. I'd entertain a motion to take up items number 2 and 3 as a package.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to take up items number 2 and 3 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So I'm going to say that's a 5-0 vote.
No, I'm gonna vote no on that. I would rather take up 2 by itself, but.
So it's a 4-1 vote,
Okay.
and the motion carries. Items 2 and 3 are both related to an RC district. Item 2 says that a zone change proposal to create a retail center RC zone, taking into account both present tendencies and desired future development of such properties with appropriate criteria to ensure proper cohesive uses and promote continued mixed commercial retail in Holyoke. Item number 3 says that we entertain a zone change proposal to have the City of Holyoke remove from its Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, zoning ordinance section 8.3, shopping center districts, and any other reference to this spot zone and replace it with a retail center. You'll need to open yours.
I'd like to entertain a motion to reopen the public hearings of the Holyoke Planning Board to take up a zone change text to create a retail center zone called RC and a zone change text, section 8.3, shopping center district replaced with retail center district.
So moved.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I'll just note that we have taken this up on a number of occasions already, and we have several materials in front of us. They've been sent to us a few weeks ago, and I believe that we are going to get a brief overview of some of these materials, and we can take it from there. Is there somebody who's set up to do a PowerPoint or a presentation from the planning board side or from planning staff?
No, I don't know whether we're set up to do it, but we do have, and I'm not sure whether I can make a screen sharing thing work. But if so, we have actually older materials that constitute a PowerPoint that I think were probably distributed last time we discussed this, which is now back in like 2016. I didn't check the dates on these materials, but we certainly do have them, and I'm sure therefore that the city council does too, wherever they are in the file system. But before we worry about the technology and trying to get this up on the screen, I think it might be worthwhile just to go back a little and talk about how we got here. This is an old project, and it grew out of a bunch of conversations that the planning board and I think probably members of the ordinance committee and the city council had with businesses that were trying to do things up in the Ingleside neighborhood. And we're finding that they just couldn't. There was, for instance, when Hobby Lobby came into the Holyoke Mall, they wanted to have a much bigger sign than our ordinances allowed. And, there was no problem with this from our point of view, but there was no way under our ordinances to make it happen. And shortly after that, there was a proposal to move a dialysis center into what's now the Barnes & Noble Plaza. And they couldn't do that, although there were other places in Ingleside that were appropriate that they could have gone. And it appeared to everybody who discussed this that, the hodgepodge of zoning up there was just a historical remnant. It didn't serve a purpose, and it made economic development more difficult for everybody. And we wanted to have one coherent neighborhood in the city where we could have large-scale retail and businesses associated with retail, and also the kinds of things that even then, malls and similar installations were beginning to realize the face of retail was changing, and they were going to have to be able to expand their uses up there. And the more flexibility we could offer them, the better. So in consultation with, I think many members of the city council and also with members of the planning staff, this proposal was developed. And what it does is, technically eliminate the old shopping center zone and replace it with a cohesive zone where generally uses are expanded. There are a few things that we restricted in this draft because, it was thought at the time that, for instance, small professional offices, less than 2,500 square feet, were a bad fit for the vision of the, area. And, whether that's still true 4 years later with the further changes in retail we've all seen, I think is open for discussion. But that was the idea. And, you should have both the draft of the ordinance as it then existed, and a chart of uses that shows what was going to change and why. And a sheet showing what property now was in which of the 6 existing zones. And, that's the backdrop against which this took place. And I'm not sure why the process stalled out. I remember that at one point, several people on the edges of the proposed zone felt that they would be better served if they stayed with their old zoning. And we just, cut those from the proposed new zone. As far as I know, there are no objections now from anywhere. But, it is back before you, and that's why. And, we still feel that although there may be some tweaks to be made, this is a valuable tool for, whoever is in charge of managing Holyoke's economic development to have.
Thank you for that overview, Ms. Panich. Does anyone want to add to that at all? Ms. Krukemeyer?
Have talked amongst ourselves about some changes we might make to the draft, and as Ms. Panich said, we would certainly be open to other tweaks to it because this should work for everyone, and it certainly seemed to work for everyone when it was first proposed, but there may be some different ideas at this point. But two small changes that we were certainly going to propose was when the shopping center zone was proposed, it still had the shopping center zone included a proposal in included wording in 8.3.2.4 about dimensional design requirements that you could exceed 50% building coverage if you got a special permit. And the current proposal doesn't include that provision for getting a special permit to exceed 50%, and we think it should be put back in, perhaps with some slight wording changes, but we think there's an argument to be made that we might like to encourage denser development of retail, and if that happened at the expense of parking spaces, of which there seem to be quite a lot there, that would not necessarily be a bad thing. We don't want to have people cut back on buffers and landscaping, but if an applicant thought that having a building cover somewhat more than 50% was relevant for them, we think they should be able to make that case. And we were also going to propose a slight change to the lighting height to be more in line with what we recently approved on the lot that Amazon is using. So in 8.3.8.3, we would change the maximum height of a fixture within 75 feet of a lot line. We would reduce it slightly from 30 to 25 feet, just in deference to abutters, essentially.
Can you cite that reference again, please?
Yeah, the second one is 8.3.8.3, lighting. The proposal you have in front of you has 30 feet for fixtures within 75 feet, and 40 feet beyond. What we've recently approved in a different location at the mall is 25 feet within 75 feet of the property line, but still 40 feet inside of, or farther than 75 feet from the lot line. And we would like to keep that consistent.
Did you find it, Linda? Okay. Anyone else from the planning board or even planning staff who wants to make any comments before we have questions and discussion? Mr. Kelly.
I just want to add to that, one of the uses we've talked about a little bit in planning, and we've had a request actually from Kevin Soley, Soley Engineering, that's developing some property up there at the Holyoke Landing, is for a car wash to be added is, one of the uses. I would just caution, if we're looking at car washes, I'd like to make sure that we somehow look at hours of operation, and that we also have on premises while it's open and attendant, because I think if you don't have some restrictions around car washes, they can really become a very negative impact upon, the neighborhood. So I think if we allow car washes, we want to allow a car wash that has an attendant there all the time, that it's open hours of operation, and maybe even restrict somehow the hours, so it's not a 24-hour, catch-all with things going on.
Okay, I think I have a letter here. I'll hold off on that until we get to the public comment part. But other questions from council members?
I do.
Councilor Bacon.
So my question is going back to the history, and what I'm interested to know is, other than the text change request from Holyoke Crossing, have there been any other zone change requests that have come from any of the owners that would be affected by this new zone, should it be passed? If anybody knows, and if it isn't immediately available, I would appreciate that at our next meeting to inform us. Can I keep asking?
Sure.
So my next question is, who of all the affected businesses relative to this zone have we heard from since the notices were sent out? I know we've heard from Mr. Soley, and I know we've heard from Mr. Britton, but I'm not aware of having heard from any of the other noticed businesses relative to this public hearing. So if that information is anywhere present, I'd be interested to hear it. And I would also like to share my perspective on the history of this zone change. I was here for the entire discussion, and my recollection as to what initiated this proposal was the request for the text change from the spot zone Holyoke Crossing LLC. They requested a text change rather than requesting a zone change, which they could have sought to do, which would have expanded their uses. Other than that, I mean, they're surrounded by other uses that could have expanded their ability. So I make that as a commentary. And also relative to sign size, I don't see creating a wholesale zone is necessary to deal with the matter of signs. We have a separate sign ordinance that we will be revisiting shortly because we've been out of compliance with certain matters, and so we could easily remedy sign issues in that context without creating an entire new zone in the city. So to me, this appears to be an expansion of a spot zone, which according to the planning standards that I have been educated on by our planning board, should never have been created in the first place. So I have concerns in that regard. One of the more senior counselors to me said in the day that the shopping center zone was created, they were hoping that they would create the zone and the people would come. But I think the problem with the shopping center zone was that it was uniquely created, but it didn't meet the changing needs. However, the people that currently are zoned in their current zones have been able to do their projects, as we have seen over the last 3 years, because they exist. We have the wonderful project where we have our new restaurant, where Applebee's was, and we have the ongoing project that we all just approved. And the other question that I would put forth is from one of the people that would be affected by the zone change. And they're interested to know, since their use is residential, if this zone change goes through, would it make it possible that a use of a tractor-trailer school would then not be allowed next to a residential home, which under the current circumstances is allowed. So there is a question as to if this zone change was imposed upon the people listed, whether it would in fact change what currently exists in that regard. So that is another question that I would like to put forth to inform the public hearing relative to this matter. I may have others, but those are the ones that I came up with in preparation for the meeting tonight. So I would look forward to that information at a future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. What I will say is that we do have a letter from Mr. Soley, who is an engineer. That is part of the paper package that we have today, and I believe that Mr. Burkott is in possession of several other letters from property owners. I do want to just remind everyone that we are talking only about items 2 and 3 at the moment, which is about the creation of a retail center district and the elimination of a shopping center district. So we're not talking about individual parcels at this point. When we get to item 4, that would be a different issue, and I think that question is more appropriately applied to item number 4.
You can save it for that item. I'm fine with that.
Yep. And then I just want to highlight something that Councilor Bacon said in terms of an expansion of a spot zone. So if it is an expansion of a spot zone into multiple other parcels, then it is no longer a spot zone. And really the goal here is to create a unified zone so that even though businesses are going up next to one another in that area, they all have a different set of criteria to meet to move forward. And in some instances, different parcels become difficult to create projects on because there's different standards. And that's what we heard from Mr. Soley at a previous public hearing. I do see a hand up from Ms. Krukemeyer. Ms. Krukemeyer, I'll recognize you, but I do want to just note whether Mr. Burkott from the planning staff is here. He's not in view on our screen here. And he may have some answers to some of the questions that Councilor Bacon raised related to a tractor-trailer school in particular being allowed in the retail center zone or not allowed.
Well, at this point, I mean, a tractor-trailer training school is still a business and was allowed in a BH zone. I don't know how it ever got there. I was never involved in that one. As far as the letters, I mean, I had at one point forwarded a letter from Ingleside Square, John Redmond. I had forwarded two letters from Ned Borowski from Venture X. And I also had forwarded some letters from the Taxpayers Association, as well as a letter from Mr. Soley. I had spoke to John Goodrow a couple of years ago. He is the O'Connell's Oil with the gas station, and he was for it. I was never able to get a letter from him. And at this point, with the new owners for the Barnes & Noble Plaza, I don't have a contact for them. So I don't know if that was the answer or if there was anything further.
No, but can you just repeat what you said, that the tractor trailer school would not have been allowed in the zone that it popped up in? And it wouldn't be
Well,
allowed?
I can't
That's
answer,
not my
I was never involved in the tractor trailer training school, so I don't actually know how it was
That's not my
permitted, to be
Then I
honest.
misunderstood your question.
So my question is, if the new zone change was to be approved, would a tractor trailer school be allowed next to a residential use? That is my question.
And I guess I don't know how to answer that, and I'd probably have to converse with the building commissioner as the interpreter enforcement agent as to how you would classify a tractor trailer training school.
I think it would be important to understand as a part of the public hearing, so we'll just leave that question out there for the next meeting. Thank you.
I actually think that your question would depend on where we apply the zoning. So again, it's parcel specific, not use specific. The use determines what is allowed. Where it's allowed determines on where we apply the zone. So the question is not about whether or not it is allowed next to a residential use. The question is, what zone is next to a residential use? And then what's allowed in that zone. So it's a two-part question. It doesn't really work that way in terms of being able to provide you a definitive answer.
Well, except for the fact that the parcels that are being referred to, which we've been talking about during this whole evening, are already zoned business highway, but they are used as residential. So it is a proper question to ask within the context of changing the zone, whether it would have an effect or not. So I think it's important for that to be understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Krugermeyer.
I wanted to speak to some of the questions raised. Why, for instance, speaking to signs, like why can't we just fix this by fixing the sign ordinance? The issue, as I see it, is that if you adjust all the zones, there are 6 zones currently. If you look at the zoning in this area, there are 6 zones. If you change all of those existing zones to allow for signs of the size that one might think would be appropriate at the mall or in the mall area, you're then going to allow signs of that size at scattered sites throughout the city, because these 6 zones, I don't know the exact percentage of what they cover in the city, but these 6 zones are located in areas all around the city. And so rather than addressing issues in the mall area, you're now, if you change all of those zoning sign sizes, you're allowing that size in many other locations in the city where it might not be reasonable, which is why, from my perspective, it makes a lot of sense to treat the area around the mall, the shopping center area, as a unified zone where a larger sign size would be allowable. And to give an example of one thing that's already happened, when the mall came in, perhaps it's a year and a half or 2 ago, to ask for a change to the allowable height, I believe because they're thinking of putting in a movie theater. And, we voted to make that change to their zone, to business highway zone, to allow for that higher height so that they could put in the movie theater that they were saying was essential to their business plan. What that does, because we changed BH, that allows now for buildings of that size at every BH zone around the city, which is many small sites scattered throughout the city that you might not think make any sense to be BH. Whereas if we had a shopping center zone, we could allow for those larger buildings without having an impact on zoning around the rest of the city. And I think that's why it makes much more sense from my perspective to create a unified zone in this area rather than tweaking existing zones that we have. Thanks.
Thank you.
That brings me to another question.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So my other question is more of a macro question, and I'm looking at the stated purpose of the retail center zone. And it's talking about facilities in an appropriate location with an appropriate design, scale, and intensity, which will create a harmonious and functional relationship with the immediate surroundings and community, as well as support the long-term sustainability of a retail district in the city of Holyoke. And it's talking about the certain geographic areas. And so if we're talking about trying to support and enhance the retail center, what I'm puzzled by is increasing the availability of multifamily dwellings with a building height of 8 to 9 stories. It seems to me that that intention looks to be creating a dense residential area rather than a retail center. Now, in our earlier discussions, we had been talking about only the large plazas being involved in this. Kmart Plaza, Ingleside, the Holyoke Crossing, those large areas. Now in this new configuration, there's tiny lots, empty lots, as well as the large areas. So it seems to have grown in scope and reach. And almost every use that you could find in any zone is listed here. So I haven't had time to go and cross-reference every line in this document with every line on the zoning grid, but it seems to me that almost every use within every business zone is listed under the retail center zone. So it seems like a real, I don't know, stew of uses. And I'm a little lost on the harmony part. And I'd like to sort of have somebody put forth sort of not a vision of what the area would be, but sort of a logistical pro forma of how this would translate into what the stated purpose is, because it just seems contradictory on its face. Thank you.
So I could provide a really brief example that may illustrate what the purpose is here. So again, it was always talking about the Whiting Farms corridor and creating a contiguous, continuous, and unified zone. And we have heard many times now that malls are becoming alls. So malls are no longer just shopping centers. Malls are providing a range of services. I can go there and take my son to Billy Bees or to the trampoline park. There are other malls, for example, where my brother lives in Washington, D.C., Tyson's Corner, that has very nice restaurants attached to the mall. Even our Holyoke Mall has very nice restaurants there. There's hotel and lodgings. There's rental car. So it creates a destination of shopping and services. Dental offices and other medical uses can also be found in these malls that are becoming alls. And it's a different shopping experience than what I think we want to drive downtown, which is going to be smaller mom and pop shops, more homegrown entrepreneurs finding small sites and more of a boutique, if you will, shopping experience. Whereas we do still anticipate larger developments and chain sort of developments happening in this retail center district. And that is very much in harmony with what we see today. So we would just expand the ability for all the businesses that are locating in that area to have to conform with a consistent set of rules across parcels. Because again, right now, when we have the multiple 5 other uses in the area, the signage requirements, the signage limitations, the setback requirements and limitations, the types of uses, are just a hodgepodge, and that's the disharmony that we're working to overcome.
So I would note all those uses you just stated are already present at our mall. Thank you.
Except for the medical uses and the
There's been
lodging.
a dental service at the mall. And I would also note that in the last round, the Holyoke Mall looked at this and they said they were good with what they have in terms of their zoning. And they did not want to move forward at the last time. I would like to know if we've heard from the mall yet, or, I just haven't seen any letters. I'm aware that a couple of owners, Mr. already has his project approved.
Yep.
Mr. Borowski already has his project approved. So they're good to go. So they don't.
They're good to go presently and not into the future. And we're thinking about the future here.
Yeah, they don't see themselves affected by it, is the feedback I've gotten. Thank you.
Ms. Panich?
I think just a couple of technical points. The business about large density housing, I think, was in part a response to a tendency that we've seen around the country for some of these larger, once retail buildings to be converted to mixed-use structures that do have residences in them. And because we're worried about making sure that the mall and other businesses of that scale endure, it seemed worthwhile to at least leave that possibility open. The other thing I would point out about that is that it is a use that would, under this proposal, only be available by special permit. So, there would be a chance to make sure that everything actually worked before anybody could do anything like that. That said, I don't think it's central to this proposal. And off in another direction, the spot zone question, I think, can be looked at more usefully as eliminating spots. And call the existing Barnes & Noble Plaza a spot zone, which classically is a special zone that is created for the financial benefit of the owner, where the properties around it don't enjoy the same benefits. It is the only SC zone in the city, as I recall. But if this proposal were to go forward, what would happen is that the entire zone, or the entire area, would basically share one zone. So there would not be a spot zone at all. And, we're not expanding a spot zone, we're making it go away. And, I'm sure that if this continues to be a concern, we can ask for a legal opinion about it. But just spot zoning is something that I tend to be sensitive to, and I just don't see it in this case.
So I would like to ask a question.
Sure, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So in this scenario where you're saying a spot zone would be eliminated, which if this is imposed on others, that is correct, technically, who stands to benefit the most in this new zone from gaining more uses? And who stands to lose the most? When you compare the chart side by side, who gains, who gets something taken away?
Of the landowners that are there now?
Property owners. Yes, that this would be imposed upon.
It would be more liberal than every other zone that's there, as far as I can read the chart. And correct me if I'm wrong, somebody from planning board, but I do see this zone, the RC zone, has the most allowed uses, where others have ends and are grayed out. And many of the uses that are allowed only by special permit, however. So while the ability is there, it's fairly controlled.
So
I believe we do have a chart that shows exactly what Councilor Vacon would like to know, and we can forward it to her. And to the.
We all have that?
We have it in front of us.
Oh, okay, then you don't need it.
Which one is that, please?
The one that's to your right, with the grayed out spots, and it shows you BL, BG, BH, IG, IP, SC, and RC.
Okay, so as an example, in the current BH, multifamily dwelling is allowed, and in the new iteration, it would only be by special permit. Right now, it's a use by right in the zone. So those are the kinds of things that I think each business owner should be able to look at and evaluate and they should affirmatively seek a zone change or not.
Okay, but I'm going to just reiterate that we are talking only about 2 and 3 at this point, and anything related to a particular landowner's parcel is still on the table in item number 4. Any other questions from committee members? Anyone from the planning board? Seeing none, I think we should allow the public to speak. We do have members of the public in the chamber. You would just come to, was that somebody else? So we invite you to come to the microphone to speak in favor or against. You're also welcome to ask any questions. Just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, everybody hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My name is Roy Britton, 494 Whitney Avenue, the city. I've been there all my life. I want to talk about the tractor trailer school to begin with. Who gave permission for the mall to move that school from one area to about my property? Can anybody tell me that?
No, I don't believe anybody in this
Was there a
body
special
can.
permit?
There is a special permit offered for the office space, the one trailer that was used as office space. But other than that, the activity of tractor trailer trucks on that site, I'm unsure of where that came from. It was not a special permit.
The office facility, I have no problem with that. My problem is with tractor trailers. And that's quite a difference. You wake up in the morning on a Sunday, 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's all you hear. They start running their motors. And it's only going to get worse in the wintertime because they run constantly all day. I'm breathing in that stuff. Me and my wife, we're the only residents there. We're breathing that stuff. And we're listening to the noise. Nobody seems to listen to us, though. My biggest problem is I contacted Bill Rogalski at the time, was the mall manager, and he apologized for not telling me that they were moving this facility. That doesn't cut it with me. I want to know if it's a legal thing. Are they zoned for it? If they're not, get them out of there. Put them in the country somewheres where people don't have to listen to that stuff. It's really aggravating day in and day out to hear all the noises that come from that. Now, I'm confronted with another area across the street from my house where Amazon is building, I don't know what they're building there, maybe another launch pad for Jeff Bezos or something, but they've been there for all summer. And it's another situation, only it's a little bit worse with noise. They start at 7 o'clock in the morning, digging. And I don't know if there's a sound ordinance or what, but they're not paying attention to that. If they're starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's totally ridiculous to me. If they're on a time schedule where they have to meet in order to get paid, I can see their point, but I really am annoyed over the fact that they make so much noise over there. Now I got litter from their area blowing into my front yard. I was going to blame the mall, but I can't. I got to blame Amazon. They got to police the area. The third thing I want to talk about is the attraction that the mall has created with that Round 1 recreational center. It seems like now we're confronted with car clubs. These kids, I call them, young adults, on a Friday night, starting at 9 o'clock, there's at least 30 to 40 cars that come by at one session, and they all go right up to the recreational center. Now they're starting to do racing around Sears' empty parking lot, which is wrong. I call the mall security. We don't have a driver for our car. Come on. That's totally ridiculous. I don't want to hear an answer like that. You only have one driver? Well, you're going to have to call the Holyoke Police. Well, I did. Unfortunately, it was a shift change. So it took them about a half hour to get up there. When they got there, with their lights, one cruiser, it seems like all the cars were beginning to leave at an appropriate speed. But as soon as they got to my house, all hell broke loose. They got these cars that got custom exhaust. They're manufactured right from the manufacturer. All they gotta do is just flip a switch and it sounds like gunshot. That's ridiculous. It seems like nobody wants to do anything about this, but we have to put up with noise. So at midnight, that's when they come out of there. I gotta listen to that stuff. And that's every Friday night. And I would venture to say that if anyone wants to come up to my presence in my property on 9 o'clock on a Friday night to witness this, you're welcome to it. Our doors are open. But it's totally inappropriate right now. Unfortunately, I had an accident in front of my house this week. Seems like somebody jumped the curb by my mailbox and blew his tire out, and the side of his car, the wheel, scraped my wall for about 10 feet. And then he proceeded to go up the road. Well, anyhow, I went out because I heard the noise, and I saw that. And he left a trail all the way to the mall. Well, I got in my car and I did a little investigation. I went up, and in the corner where the tractor trailer school is, there was an individual changing a tire. Kind of a coincidence, but I went over to him. I said, wow, the whole side of the tire was blown out. What happened? Oh, I had a blowout. What did you hit? I didn't hit nothing. Oh yeah, you did. You hit my wall. I didn't hit no wall. Yeah, you hit my wall. I didn't hit no wall, I didn't hit no fence. I goes, you hit my wall. I said, don't lie to me. So I took his number down. I called the Holyoke Police, and they showed up about a half hour later. And the officer, his name was Matt Goulding, very informative with me, and he was investigating it. I showed him where he hit the wall, and he agreed, yeah, no doubt about it that he hit the wall. Well, anyhow, I want to really thank the police department because Matt said he would see if they could put one of those movable trailers with the speed signs. So they did. My neighbor's property, they brought it up there yesterday, and it's out there now. But they're to be congratulated for that trailer. But I want to thank Matt for that. But there's got to be something before we even think about a zone change. Even thinking about a zone change, we got to slow the traffic down. And you know, some of the biggest violators, UPS, Amazon, the Springfield PVTA buses. I see some of these buses go down the road at 40 to 50 miles an hour by the time they reach my house. If anybody ever came out of the apartments, God forbid, you know, but they got to slow the traffic down. And these car clubs that go up there, they got to find another area. I know that they hang around the Riverdale shops, and at a certain time of night, they all form their lines, and they don't stop for red lights either. They all go through them. I watch them go through that one at the mall right there. They don't care. If anybody's coming down, they better stop, you know. But it seems to me we have to open our eyes and address the issues before we even look at a zone change. And as far as I'm concerned, how many counselors are here tonight?
We have all 5 members of the ordinance committee here.
And how about the planning board?
All 5 members of the planning board are here as well.
That's good, all 5. Okay, that answers my question right there. All right, thank you for the time anyhow.
Thank
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak as a member of the public? Mr. Kelly? And then we would take people, if you're online and interested in speaking, you would want to raise your hand. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, I'll allow Mr. Kelly to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Number one is, I've been hearing tonight about the tractor trailer training school, and I think we as a community have to look into the fact, is that legally there? Or is it just a case again of where there's tractor trailers, they're training to learn how to drive these things, and are they there by right? And if not, it's another enforcement issue that the city has to look into. Secondly, as far as Amazon is concerned, I think the answer to that, sir, is my understanding, we approved, that's an overflow parking lot for the Amazon employees or some of their vehicles. So you may be hearing in the morning right now with some of the construction to get that site, completed, but hopefully that'll be temporary. Third issue, as far as cars and mufflers, believe me, I'm not too far away from you. Okay, I'm in Devonshire, and it's more than Holyoke. It's a situation that takes place everywhere, but that's another enforcement issue. And I know that our mayor is here, and I know he's working with other communities because it's just a terrible thing. And you're right. These mufflers are. I don't care if you're uptown, downtown, you're in Holyoke, you're in Chicago. It's all over. It's a just terrible situation. But I'm hoping the issue with the Amazon is really a construction issue, and there's supposed to be attendance there, to police that facility. So if there's issues relative to continued trash, et cetera, we have to know about that. And we'll certainly deal with that. And again, I think, relative to tractor trailer school, no one seems to know. They arrived. I know they got lower level of the ball classrooms, that's one thing, but I have no idea whether they're legally there in that parking lot, to be able to move those vehicles. And I city's got to look into that.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy to file an order to ask what the status is. Councilor Bacon.
If I may. So on the round one, the question has been raised about the hours, and I had a vague memory of something coming up about extending the hours, but I couldn't find any records or notes relative to any action that had been taken in that regard. So I'm wondering if as part of this public hearing, we could figure that part out too, because I'm just not aware that we had a zoning thing that extended hours up till 11 o'clock at night, but perhaps we did, and I'm just not remembering it, but it would help us to understand, I think, in the context of the public hearing, what that status is, if somebody can find it. I just was not able to find it. Thank you.
If I can.
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, just to answer some of the concerns Mr. Britton has, and they're very legitimate concerns, and we have talked several times since I've been on the council and trying to do things. First of all, I've already jotted myself a note to ask our city solicitor about whether or not the tractor trailer facility is in fact a legal entity there. So I'll try to figure out and get an answer in the next couple of days on that. I appreciate the information about Friday nights. I will talk to the chief of police tomorrow about both being prepared ahead of time and also having enough cruisers there to be able to do something to get those people ticketed and eventually, if need be, their cars more than ticketed if possible. The last thing, two other things. I'm glad to hear that the officer, and I know you said his first name was Matt, I didn't get his last name.
Golding.
Golding, okay. I'm very glad to hear that he was good at what he did, and that we ended up putting the speeding vehicle portable enforcer. And lastly, let me tell you, I have actually spoken this week and trying to file state legislation to see if we can create a limit in terms of revving up and muffler noises in the manufacture of the vehicles. Because if we don't do that, there's no way that we can police it and solve it. We gotta solve it in terms of what the product actually is capable of doing. And there's no reason for a person's vehicle to be able to be making those kind of noises. So I have talked to our state, we've communicated by email. I won't say I've talked to them. We've communicated by email several times in the last 2 days, and that is one of the issues that we brought up. So, and I know they are looking to see what they can file state legislative-wise in terms of manufacturing and vehicles coming into Massachusetts. So I just want to let you know.
One thing I want to point out, I read an article in Motor Trend magazine while I was at the barber shop 2 years ago, and they stated that a lot of the manufacturers, especially the foreign manufacturers, Audi, Toyota, Honda, they were going to start manufacturing cars with custom exhaust because that was a big thing with young people. And lo and behold, here we got it. But they didn't say anything about exhaust that sounds like gunshot, because that's exactly what it sounds like. It's terrible. There's one other thing I want to ask that maybe somebody can answer. Years ago, when the mall first came into existence, they used to dump their snow in the parking lot where the tractor trailer school is now. And we got them to stop that from the Conservation Committee into the Board of Health. So then it became a racetrack for young adults that like to do what they call donuts. Well, I approached John Mason, the project manager, about that. And he said, well, we can't shut that parking lot down, Roy. Why not? We'll put those Jersey barriers across there. No, it's against the regulations. We have to have X amount of parking spaces for our square footage on the mall. Mm-hmm. Now, I know the mall has not changed their square footage. At least to my knowledge, they haven't. But yet now they're allowing one of their auxiliary parking lots to harbor a school of tractor trailers. So what does that tell me? You can't shut the parking lot down to alleviate the recreational speeders, but yet you can have a school of tractor trailers. Now, I know I'm fighting the government over this because he told me, Bill Rogalski, that that school is government subsidized, which I was really surprised to hear. But that's why they got so many students there. It's every 4 or 5 weeks they have a changeover with students. So, but it seems to me that why are they being allowed there when they're telling me that they have to have so many parking places for so many square feet of the mall? Anybody answer that?
No, this body does not have the technical information to answer that question. But I will file an order to see if we could get some answers from the appropriate board and staff.
Well, I would appreciate some kind of answers anyhow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else online who wishes to speak? Okay, there's no one further for tonight then. What is the will of the body?
I would like to keep the hearing open to get the information back for the questions that were raised tonight and to receive the correspondence that has been alluded to, but we don't have.
The correspondence from Beyond Solely that Mr. Burkott mentioned?
He mentioned 2 or 3 different things.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I'll second that.
So we'll need to continue to a date certain. Let's see. So it's probably going to be early November, I think, at this point, late October, early November. We could do the 26th. That's probably a reasonable time to get back together, but I don't know what your schedule is like, and I'm not sure if you're continuing as well.
I'd like to ask the members of the planning board what their desire is relative to the public hearing?
So move.
I need some direction here. We either can continue or close, but I've got to have some member of the board.
You have a hand from Kate.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, I'm not sure if we need any more information. If we do, it might just be small pieces of information. Perhaps we could continue separately.
I think that makes sense to me. I have some concern that the ordinance committee might develop new information that could be relevant to us, but it sounds to me like, based on the questions asked, that's relatively unlikely.
So could I hear a motion from one of the members?
I guess I would move that we could continue the planning board's public hearing to our next scheduled meeting, which is the 28th.
Well, the public hearing, we're holding a joint public hearing with ordinance, so I think.
Are we?
Councilor
But I was
Lipson
under
said-
the impression that we could, because these are two separate bodies, sever the public hearing and continue ours to a separate date.
Well,
We've done that before.
Yes, we could do that, but yeah, I just thought that in the spirit of having joining, whatever motion you want to give me, I'll accept the motion. I just have to, again, Kate, you're proposing that we continue our public hearing till Tuesday, September 28th?
Yes.
And Mr. Kelly, if I may, I think the questions that came up were related to item number 4, which is a separate issue. So we could possibly take up item number 4 at a date together. But on items number 2 and 3, it seems that the only outstanding questions that we have at this point are getting the letters from the property owners, and just hearing their thoughts on it, and then being able.
We're getting a lot of feedback.
Somebody needs to mute themselves. Okay, so it's getting the letters, and then I know we have this chart in front of us that shows us who is sort of like winning, gaining uses, and who's sort of being limited in their prior uses. But remember, this is not, it's only, I don't know how to say this. The RC district, or the RC zone, I should say, would be the most liberal zone, and where it is applied is what would change in terms of what a property owner would gain or be limited on in relation to their prior use. So again, I think that relates to item number 4 again, and we're not waiting for much in terms of items number 2 and 3. It's just the letters.
Rebecca, so my other question related to the items that are before us was who we've heard from of the businesses that were noticed relative to those items, and what, if any, feedback we've received. Which right now, I think I've heard somebody reference 3 out of a list of, I don't know, 12, 15. And that relates to these that are before us now, and that's one of my questions. Thank you.
I don't think it does, because this is just a text change. It's not location-based. This hearing here is in relation to item number 4 alone.
But the item that's before us now is related to the zone change. They were noticed on this zone change. I have the copies of the
No,
notice.
it's still, item number 2 and 3 are about text changes only. It's adding a retail center zone and deleting a shopping center zone. So there's only one parcel that would be affected by the deletion of a shopping center zone. The rest of the zone changes are loaded onto item number 4. And that is not something that I
It's all
think,
intertwined.
Well,
we've been taking them up as a conversation together as a package, but they are distinct and discrete issues.
No.
I
At
do
this
see a hand
point-
from Counselor Hernandez. I do want to recognize her for the first time, and then Ms. Panage will come to you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to, I've heard, all the discussion and thank everyone. And I'm trying to figure out, so what is preventing us from voting or moving forward the items 2 and 3 and closing that public hearing and then taking 4 separately? I'm not sure. Can you clarify and develop on this? Because it almost seems like, what I've heard so far is that we're trying to move towards a more consistent method of having an all across the board type of process, and that is going to be more harmonious and, more fair for once. And I see that there's questions that continue to arise, additional questions. So we continue to keep the hearing open, and then kind of like, so for me it's a little bit confusing, and I would like to know why is it that we can't move forward with item 2 and 3. Thank you.
I do think, to Councilor Bacon's point, having those letters before us, if they're endorsing the zone change as a text change, they're still valuable. And whether or not they are in favor of their own parcel being changed is a separate issue, but I think there is value, at least from the ordinance committee's perspective of staying open. I'm not sure if that need is there on the planning board side, but I'll recognize.
And also,
I'm sorry,
can
go ahead.
I have a follow-up? I'm sorry. And also, when it's spoken about that, have we heard from the property owners, if they were notified, wouldn't this be the space for them to communicate right here, right now, if they have any objections? I don't understand that part. Can you develop on that, please?
You're right. It's a public hearing, so people could come and speak in favor or against. It seems that we have some letters in favor, and we haven't been able to include them in the public record. So receiving those letters and including them in the public record is in order.
Julie, and I would also add, we have businesses that are reviewing this that have not weighed in.
All set, Ms. Councilor Hernandez?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, so if the businesses are reviewing it, they're not weighing in, but was this the opportunity for them to weigh in? I just don't get that part, because this is why we have these hearings.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that was the purpose of my question. Thank you.
Ms. Panich?
Yeah. Well, when I first raised my hand, I had intended just to second my colleague Ms. Crookermeyer's motion to continue. But while I have the floor, I think it's possibly worth pointing out that we still will need to finalize our draft and get a recommendation over to you all. And, I would hope, because we do feel, we've been working on this a long time, but we have new information that we will want to take into account. But I would hope that we will be able to get you a draft you can work from in fairly short order and take up and vote up or down and amend as you like. But at any rate, second on Kate's motion.
Thank you.
So you seconded, so we have a first and second on the motion for the planning board? Am I
Correct, to continue to 9/28.
Okay, at 5:30 PM?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, I can't see how Gernander voted.
Excuse me?
I don't get to see how Gernander voted.
Yes.
Was
He voted,
thank you.
it carried 5-0 in the affirmative for everyone.
Thank you.
So since we don't need to coordinate with the planning board, we could potentially take this up on the 12th or the 26th of October.
I would say the 12th.
Okay. There's been a motion made to continue to October 12th.
Second.
at 6:30 PM. It was seconded by Counselor Anderson Burgos. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. 10, 12, 6:30. And in good measure, I think we should take up item number 4 and
Let's make
see
a
if there's anyone
motion,
who wants
take
to
up
speak
item
on
number
it.
4.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to take up item number 4 and open the public hearing for zone change proposals to rezone the following parcels: retail center, in an effort to create a cohesive regional destination of district of mixed commercial retail with property owners that share the same regulations. And then it lists the several properties here that have been noticed. All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Entertain a motion, the planning board to reopen our public hearing, discuss zone map changes, a series of parcels that are listed.
So moved.
Is there a second on
I'll
the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
I think we heard some comments related to this issue previously. I don't know if any counselors or planning board members want to comment further. Otherwise, I would go immediately to public comment. Seeing none, I would invite the public to speak in favor or against the zoning of any of these parcels into a retail center district. Doesn't seem to be anyone here in the chambers. Anyone online?
Then I would like to speak on this if there's nobody in the public. So relative to item 4, I've been very clear about my position on this relative to the government role in private property. And so my offer that I would make that I think would be fair to the businesses and perhaps give the opportunity to create a broader zone would be to amend this item that the zone change proposals to offer rezoning to the following parcels without fee or application necessary would accomplish the ability of making it available to the people. But if it did not meet their business needs and their investment that they've made in their property, it would not be mandated upon them. So that would be my proposal relative to item 4.
So under discussion, I would just say, I'm interested in getting those letters and seeing what the property owners have to say before making any sort of changes like that.
I'm just offering it as input in the public hearing. We'll debate it, I assume, after the public hearing.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment then? Seeing none, I think we can continue this to the 12th as well, unless there's any objection.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to continue this
Aye.
hearing.
Sorry. So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there a second to continue the public hearing?
Second.
Thank you. 10:12 at 6:30 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. So moved. 5-0 vote.
Okay, entertain a motion from the planning board as far as the continuance or a closing of this public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close. I think we've heard what we need to hear.
Okay, motion has been made to close. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. Thank you.
I think that concludes the items that we have in joint hearing with the planning board this evening. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for the work that you
Thank you,
put
planning
in
board.
to getting us all these details
Thank you.
in advance.
Thank you.
Have a good
I
night.
really look forward to
Thank you.
more. I look forward to more in-person hearings in the future. Someday.
Yes.
Well, I still got a little hair.
And
care.
hopefully without our masks on soon.
Right.
Okay.
All right then, moving on in our agenda, we have item number 5. Is there a motion to take up this item from the table?
I'll make that motion.
The motion
Second.
has been made and seconded to take up item number 5 by Counselor Hernandez. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. So this is ordered that the ordinances be updated to reflect that Columbus Day will now be referred to as Indigenous Peoples' Day. Counselor Hernandez, as the maker of the order, do you want to give an overview? And then also, do we have one of the attorneys with us that has provided language for us to review?
Yes, I mean, basically, this is an order that I filed in an effort to take final action on, because this order was a resolution that was taken up on public service, and it was fully discussed. And we had a vote 10 in favor, 10-3 in favor of replacing Columbus Day and honoring Indigenous and celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Holyoke, which will align us with our school, Holyoke Public Schools, as well, as they already celebrate this day. And then, so this order is basically to ensure that the city has it written in their books that the employees and the paid holiday is associated with Indigenous People Day, as well as clarifying that that's why the employees are getting the time paid off associated with Indigenous People Day. And it will be something similar to what was, I believe, done when the Juneteenth holiday was implemented. And so that's what is the intention of this order. And I'm hoping that I can get the super majority vote that is needed to pass it. And I know that our legal department drafted the legal form of it. And that's all that I have to say about it, other than I have a community that stands behind me, and, you know, all of those that are looking to have this ordinance passed besides the resolution, because it's very meaningful, and it would be something that would further enforce the commitment and support and transparency of this town, and that we can be a part of the bigger movement that is happening with replacing and honoring these type of, you know, people that have been idolized for all this time, that do not share the same values, okay, of the original landowners of these territories here. So, yeah, with that said, that's all that I needed to say. I don't know if legal would like to add to what they did on this order. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this communication that we have from Attorney Degnan gives us the language that we need to consider to make this change. And I see Attorney Degnan is on the Zoom. So I don't know if you want to walk us through this at all, Attorney Degnan, or if you feel it's self-explanatory.
Well, no, I mean, I understand. I can walk it through real quick. In that what's happening here is that the Chapter 2 administration is what's affected. Both of the provisions we're amending deal with Chapter 2, Article 2, which is office and employees generally. And then the first one is Section 238. I'm sorry, 2-38. And the second one is 2-39. The difference is 2-38 deals with all employees and officers, but when you look at Section 239, that's for paid holidays for fire department employees. So what this ordinance does is it takes out in both those sections, 2-38 and 2-39, in subparagraph A, striking Columbus Day and replacing it with Indigenous Peoples Day. So I guess it is pretty self-explanatory, but that's what it does.
Thank you. Any comments from committee members? Councilor Bacon?
So my comment relative to this is that I think to pass a resolution is one thing, but this holiday is both a federal and a state holiday. And if we change our local ordinances and then we don't recognize the federal and state holiday, I think we better take a look at our contracts with our employees, because I think they reference them in that way. So I think we need to be very careful that we're not stepping on any of our employment agreements or contracts before we move forward. I think it is simple to change the language in an ordinance, but I think for a local city to start sort of preempting federal and state holidays is perhaps a little bit above our pay grade, but I think we should look at that before we just move ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Murphy, and then Attorney Degnan, you might have a response to the question that Counselor Bacon just raised, and we'll come back to you in a moment.
And actually, that's one of the thoughts I was having seen contract negotiations and holidays being listed. I'm wondering on some of the contracts that we have, if it does not specifically state Columbus Day, as opposed, obviously, since we haven't created Indigenous Peoples' Day, would that have an impact? Since if we aren't celebrating Columbus Day anymore, how does one get paid for that? And Attorney, I'm not sure of the answer, and I'm not absolutely certain it's in contracts, but I think I've seen it in contracts, but I'm not positive.
That's a point well taken. Obviously, if they're in labor agreements, we want clarity. We don't want to have create ambiguity or interpretive issues. So, and I have not looked at I have not negotiated them, and I have not looked at them. So I understand the point, and it is something we should look at.
With that in mind, once we're all through discussion, I would just suggest that we would, and I'm not putting this as an order right now, that we tabled it and asked just to verify that we are not getting ourselves in violation with any of our contracts and creating any other issue prior to actually taking formal action.
Thank you. The last thing that I would like to add is, as you explore this, Attorney Degnan, to see if a conflict would be created based on the language in our employee contracts out there,
Yes.
Is there a way to say Columbus Day will be honored if it is in the contract, but otherwise the City of Holyoke is recognizing and will have the paid holiday off for staff that honors Indigenous Peoples' Day?
Yes, I think there's language that can be included in the contract that would, again, eliminate ambiguity. People saying, well, which one is this? So the answer to your question, short answer is yes.
Great, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Counselor Anderson Burgos, did you have your hand up still, or are you all set?
I did, but you basically asked the question I was about to ask. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay. So it seems that tabling is in order. Counselor Hernandez, as the maker, do you want to add any other comments before we table to get clarification for how to resolve any conflicts that may be there?
No, I think that is perfectly good way to move forward, and I definitely want to make sure that there's clarity, that it doesn't create any problems for our employees moving forward.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we table it with the idea of getting more legal information regarding labor contracts and the holidays that are specified and how we change it.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item number 6 is filed by Counselor Murphy, that the City Council worked with the mayor to establish an ordinance that will set the guidelines for flag raising events in the city. Motion to take this off the table is in order.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Under discussion, Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, I filed this because I've had a few cases where we really don't have a policy, and I have had some research done, and there have been lawsuits filed because of certain this group got their flag raised, this nationality got their flag raised, but this one did not. I want to be in a position to make sure that we establish a policy. One of the things I've thought about is, it should be, can it be one Holyoke person that asks for a flag raising, or should we have a number of people that would sign a flag raising request to be justified? I know there are concerns about, and there have been lawsuits about prohibiting this one because of certain views and then allowing this one because of certain views. And so I think we need to, and I know, Boston is potentially in a court case right now. And, they've tried to make sure, one of the things that they said is at no time will city display flags deemed to be inappropriate or offensive in nature or of those supporting discrimination, prejudice, or religious movements. But they are potentially waiting for their court case to come in after having been sued. Wakefield tries to create their issue, and they really have a whole slew of things related to their civic center in terms of where they raise flags and why. I just think right now we have a situation where there is no criteria, and I want to whoever is going to be sitting in there should have criteria that should be met. And I would strongly suggest that one of those criteria be a petition of a certain number of Holyoke residents, and so that we're not having, that if there is no number of residents requesting, and one resident comes in, how do you deny that resident but not someone else because of whatever the issue might be, or there are not that many people of that nationality, or there's not that many people that want to do this or that. I mean, I just think, and I don't want to make it too complicated, but I think we need to, and I've spoken with the law department, and they've also indicated that that's not a bad idea to put some policy into effect, so that we don't end up saying, we discriminated against this group because we didn't agree with them, but we agreed with this group, so we did it. I think we got to have a clear policy. And I don't, there are examples. I just brought a couple, but I think we need to, work with our law department to protect ourselves and also to be fair.
I see Councilor Anderson Burgos, Councilor Hernandez, and then Councilor Bacon and Q.
Yeah, this one's a bit tricky. So I believe in a city that's very inclusive, and which I believe, City of Holyoke is. I also believe that there are certain groups that what they do tend to spread is hate. And I would hate to see a flag that demonstrates just that. Again, I believe in inclusive, but if hate is part of it, then I don't think that belongs in a city such as Holyoke, especially with so many minorities, and can be quite offensive. With that said, I think Acting Mayor Murphy is on the right track. We should be seeking legal advice, definitely, and that there should be some type of protocol everyone follows to make sure that what we are presenting to our city is something that's welcoming, and so on and so forth. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Hernandez.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so Councilor Murphy, you said that you had some examples and that there was maybe some dissatisfaction with some people that wanted their flag raised for their countries, and so what are the examples that you have?
I didn't have a specific example in terms.
I've
got examples of other cities.
Oh, of other cities.
But
Okay, I thought that you had examples.
I've also had cases where people have asked me, how do you get to do this? And I don't know the answer. There has been no policy. Oh yeah, let's go, let them do it, but let's not let this one do it, is what it could be right now. And to me, that is discriminatory right there, but it's also a potential, we're basically going into the idea that, you're violating my rights because you're allowing this one to do it because you agree. And I'm certainly not trying to, and I want to emphasize, I'm trying to make sure that anybody that's out there, just like what's talked about in Boston, would not be doing anything that is promoting discrimination or prejudice. So those kind of things, but we don't have anything that says that. We don't have anything that says, we need 20 people to sign it, and this is why, this is what we're gonna celebrate, and this is how we're gonna do it. We have nothing that, so we could put a flag up today, and we might think it's good, but we might find out tomorrow that, you know what, that's not exactly what we were told. There are no criteria, and I just, I have found this and blocking streets to be issues that are just kind of handled haphazardly, and again, the same kind of thing. Well, you allow that group to block the road, why aren't you allowing me? Well, we are now trying to develop that. That's another order I have in here, because, again, the same kind of thing. You let them do it, why can't I do it? So we need to have some set criteria, both on this and on when we're blocking the road, because otherwise, somewhere down the line, someone is going to say, I was treated unfairly, or my group was treated unfairly. And I'm just trying to avoid that and make sure that we are in a position where we have a set policy. This is what's required to have your flag considered to be raised. This is the criteria that we have in terms of the message, and as clear as possible, so that if someone decides to sue us, we've got a good strong case.
That's good, because I was thinking along the lines like, what I've seen typically happen in Holyoke is like flags of different countries, of people, representing our people.
Yeah.
But then again, I think about if it's flags representing like different interests and groups that might not, might be discriminatory towards the people that live here, then that will be a problem. So when you say that you want to have this criteria, is that going to include all of these terms that we don't get like some group that forms that has a flag that's completely offensive and goes against inclusiveness and transparency? So that's the criteria that you're trying to push forward on this on this order?
Yeah, but that's one of the other questions is, how do we know, when you say a flag is discriminatory, how do we know that? And I think it has to come down to eventually what the message is. So, with the exception of the Nazi flag, I probably could not tell you a flag that I knew was, well, maybe the Confederate flag as well.
I was going to say the Confederate flag, or like a flag that represents, terrorism, or like Ku Klux Klan and stuff like that. Like there's a whole bunch of flags that people can say, well, we represent this organization and these are our beliefs and we want to put this flag up. And those are the things that we have to avoid.
But in those kind of situations, those are pretty clear that there is, like, as I talked about prejudice and discrimination, that would obviously be related to those flags. Other than those, if somebody asked me to put a flag up, and this is what it is, unless I've seen it before, I would not know it. So do I say, okay, go ahead and do that, or do I have a set policy? And I think that we need to have a set policy. That's, to me, that makes sense.
I agree, thank you.
Yeah. Attorney Bissonette, you've been asked to be recognized, so you got it. How you doing, Mike?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members. One of the things I just wanted to point out is at the mayor's instruction, we have been looking at the flag issue. And if Councilor Tallman's out there, we haven't forgotten about the POW flag either, Councilor. That's going to be part of the flag ordinance that we hope to put forward As the mayor mentioned, there's a court case pending. Boston got sued. Boston gets 278 flag requests a year. And they've decided that this is not a free speech issue. Government doesn't have free speech, is what their position is. So they can pick and choose which flags go up. So to Councilor Hernandez's point, Boston won't let a Ku Klux Klan flag go up, or an ISIS flag, or a Confederate flag, or any flag that represents hate. And the First Circuit Court of Appeals has now upheld that position, that cities can make those judgments based on their own local community morals and what they think is the community's needs, and can ban other flags. And so that's the question that's going to the Supreme Court. And obviously, from a legal perspective, we're hesitant until we see if they're going to take this case up in the October session when they reconvene, and if so, how they're likely to rule on it. But that should give municipalities nationwide some clarity, as this has become more than just a sort of novel way to celebrate your heritage, and has begun to turn into, in some communities, almost a political circus. And that's not what flag raising was meant to be, at least in my view. Thank you to the members and for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
So it seems that a motion to or table is in order.
Yeah, I'd like to, and if I can, asking Attorney Bissonette if he can continue to maybe look around at other communities. I know you gave me a few, but maybe we can kind of go to a few more and then try to design something that creates a regular path for a group to get a flag raising. So it's not just one person coming and saying, I'd like to have this flag raised and this, but that there's some kind of, for lack of a better word, a
community
minimum
support
petition.
for it?
Yeah, community support for it.
Okay. We can work that into it, sure.
Yeah, we haven't tabled yet, so.
Okay, so one thought I'm having as I've been listening to the discussion is that there could be the process for applying, but the decision rests with the mayor, because the mayor is the head of the city. So there's a process to apply, but room one, at the end of the day, makes the call. Because otherwise, it could get very complicated.
Yeah,
But it's just a thought.
No, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is that there would be specific areas, but then the other aspect to that is, here's the petition.
Right.
And if it's going to be denied, even though that petition has been filed with the appropriate paperwork, then there's got to be a
Grounds.
clear rationale for acceptance or rejection.
Right, but it would still rest with the mayor.
Yep, yeah, oh yeah, it has to go there, yeah. But right now.
Just wanted to be
Yeah, no,
clarified.
but right now, it just, we're putting a flag up.
Yeah,
And can you come?
yeah,
And there's no criteria, so that's what I'm trying to work on.
okay.
Counselor Hernandez.
Yes, quickly, a follow-up. I heard our attorney Bissonette, he mentioned that, with the Boston lawsuit and whatnot, and that it's going to be taken up in court. So what's going to be taken up in court is the fact if they can put up like a Confederate flag, a Ku Klux Klan flag, or a Nazi flag. Is that what happened? That they were trying to put something offensive up and they said no, and now they're getting sued for it?
That's exactly correct.
And so are we going to wait until that is taken up and see what are the results to then move forward with how we're going to mold our policy for this flag raising?
I would
Well,
much
right
rather.
now,
Go ahead.
right now, we're working on it as if the U.S. Court of Appeals will be upheld, that cities will have the right to decide which flags go up or no flags go up. That's a decision that the city could make as well. We won't fly any flag other than the American flag.
Yeah.
So we'll put in whatever provisions, if different than the appeals court, that come out of the Supreme Court, but we're not quite at that stage yet. But
Okay.
we hope to have something by the end of October for the council to consider during this term.
Okay, thank you.
If I can.
Councilor Murphy?
One last thought about this whole thing also that I've asked to be considered as we do it is in the procedures. I mean, we get so many requests. I've encouraged that when we do it, it be potentially a flag raising for 1 week. Because what do you do if we put, this one wants it for a month, but this other one comes in and they also have valid concerns, and now do you say, well, this one's got it for the month, so you can't get it? I think we honor whatever we do with the flag, but I think if we do it for a week, we can do as many potential requests without having any conflict or very limited conflict. Whereas if we put them for a month, I just think we potentially have other groups that would also like to be honored during that same month, but are not given that allowance because we only have one flagpole. So I'm just trying to, like I said, it was something that I had coming into me, and no one ever gave me any criteria, and I just think it's criteria that's needed, so. So I'll make a motion, we table and request continue work with the legal department.
Second.
Motion is made and
Second.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I believe that we did not receive the language for the leash ordinance that we were considering, so that is probably more appropriate to stay on the table. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
you're okay with that, Counselor Anderson Burgos.
Yeah, just as long as it doesn't go over a term.
Okay, and then finally, item number 8 is filed by Counselor Lisi. All in favor of taking up item number 8?
Second, aye.
Aye.
You're right. Motion made and seconded. Thank you, Counselor Murphy. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
There's a 4-to-1 vote there. Under discussion, it seems that some other communities are moving ahead of Holyoke in terms of allowing social consumption of cannabis products. And it seems that in order to do it, as far as I understand, we do need to put a question on our ballot. And the date that we cannot pass in terms of getting a question on the upcoming November ballot is the 27th of September, 35 days in advance of the election. So I just put it on here to see if we made any progress in terms of finding the language that we need, if it still needs to be a ballot process or if that has changed. And so I think under discussion, if Attorney Bissonnette has any information on that.
Counselor Lisi, I would just like to make a point of order. So this order is from 2018, and this order is stale. You refiled it in June, and it's in charter and rules. So this order is no longer properly in the jacket because it's already been refiled, so it's stale. So there's not really anything for us to do with it.
Well, I disagree that it's stale because it's still in the jacket here. I refiled again to see if we could get some traction on it somewhere else because clearly if this is talking about at a biennial state election and we are no longer looking at that next election, then that's why I filed it. But this is still in the jacket. We never disposed of it. And so from we have 1 million orders in the jacket from multiple different sessions and years. We typically do a large dump where we go through the entire jacket at the beginning of the term. But this is in the jacket. And so I think that there's some questions related to this, and it's an informative item at this point in time.
So respectfully, the exact order is in charter and rules sent there by the council this June, and this order is 3 years old, and it was in a prior term. So it really is, and I've been advised by legal that that's the case, but I think we could maybe ask Attorney Bissonnette to weigh in.
I'll second that.
Sure, that's fine. So motion has been made and seconded to suspend the necessary rules and allow Attorney Bissonnette to comment. I do want to note that this has not been, again, our practice here in the council chambers. So I would be interested in hearing what Attorney Bissonnette has to say.
And then I raised my hand.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 5-0. So moved. Attorney Bissonnette, would you speak to the points that
Question,
Councilor...
yeah. The question is whether legislation proposed in prior council sessions remains alive if no action is taken on it, or if it's laid on the table. The answer is no, they are not alive. If you follow that logic to its conclusion, we go back to the Holyoke Common Council in Alderman days to look in their jackets. There's a simple way to rectify it. At the beginning of each municipal year, you just ask those returning councilors if they want to refile and renumber them. For next year will be 22-01, 22-02. And we just go through it that way. But I fear for two reasons we'd be subject to challenge on this. One is that there's no authorization anywhere, either statewide or in the council rules, to roll over prior legislation. It may be a practice that's been used, but it doesn't necessarily pass muster just because it was a past practice. So we're trying to make sure that things don't get stale, that they're properly on agendas, hearings are properly held. This one, I think, has the additional problem with the language being such that it's clear that it was for the biennial state election. I have suggested, and I will again, that if a meeting can be scheduled prior to the expiration date, that this committee could take one of its existing marijuana ordinance proposals, amend that, and could add language requesting a ballot question for the November election. That would, of course, have to get passage by the council. So this is a bit cart before the horse, only because talking with the CCC this week, they're not clear how quickly they're going to go forward with social consumption. Right now, they're focused on delivery and courier licensing, as well as handling the many applications that are still in their hopper for regular licenses. I think Director Vega said today there were about another 9 or 10 for Holyoke alone that are still pending. So there's a lot of work on that front as well. But with regard to the ballot question, the deadline of 35 days before is correct. This one would not need a legislative approval. It's not a charter change seeking opinion, but it would need passage by the council to make it to the ballot, and that would have to happen by the 27th. So a special meeting would be necessary, or the rescheduled meeting that was postponed because of the election. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I see Councilor Anderson Burgos' hand. I do want to ask one question before I recognize you, however, Councilor. So Attorney Bissonnette, I have two different questions. The first is, so from what you understood from the CCC, a ballot question is still the appropriate route forward to entertain social consumption?
Unless they change the regulations again, that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
They are allowing applications under social equity and economic impact to go forward right now, but nobody has signed up, or no one has started the pilot project yet, and there's no clear indication that they've got a path forward figured out yet, how to allow public consumption, whether it's going to be allowed on site in places that are already MREs, for example. A lot of questions to be answered. What kind of food can be served? Can they have alcoholic beverages there? So I think they're still on the fact-finding and what's going to work stage, and that's why we haven't seen the regulations we need to properly say whether or not we're going to need a referendum. But if you have one, as happened with casino licensing, you're already ahead of the game.
Right.
So if Holyoke wants to be a player early for social consumption, the referendum will be a safe way to show your interest.
Thank you for that. And then the second question is, I understand that there is a motion to renew. So would that motion work to renew the orders that have gone stale?
I would imagine it would, as long as it was taken up during the, you can do it anytime during the first or second session of the new council. That would essentially be refiling. And as long as it was, let's say, well, for example, the piece of legislation that you just filed that's now in rules and charter. If that didn't get passed and wanted to be refiled, there would be a question how to handle that. Councilor Lisi would no longer be on the council. However, someone else may want to put their name to that and have that continue. So you'd have to have a sponsor, I suppose. And with large numbers of councilors leaving or retiring, it looks like we may have some new legislation coming in January, as well as rollovers. So hopefully we can work together and figure out a way that'll smooth that pass. I would suggest that your thought on this about a motion in January could very well work, and just redate and renumber everything that the council members want to keep alive.
Thank you. That's helpful. Councilor Anderson Burgos, do you still want to be recognized?
Yeah, I just have a comment. So my tenure here, well, I've seen, I can't even count how many times we've taken an order up that has been stale. And we had no issues with voting, passing, whatever the outcome for the said order was. So I'm wondering, why are now we being selective about the order that is in front of us? I think that's something to look at. If you're going to start picking and being selective of which order, I don't like that order anyway, let me just say, let me see if there's a way I can counteract and not act on it. Oh, it's stale, so there we go. It sounds like this is, no, let me call it what it is. There has been a lot of obstruction going on in the city chambers, and I've watched it, and I've sat back and I said nothing, because I don't want to ever offend anyone. Well, guess what? I'm kind of tired of it, because it's been going on and on and on and on and on. And so if this is the case, if this is stale, then now we need to go way back and start looking at everything we passed and see what we passed that was stale, so that we can, I don't know, fix the kinks, right? Because if we've been doing it wrong all along, we need to address this. We need to look at everything when we're voting, everything. Every corner, every department, everyone involved. Thank you.
Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, just, I've got to, if in fact this has been refiled and it is in charter and rules, then I think that, in my opinion, does supersede this order, that it was an attempt to file new legislation, but that is in a different committee, and therefore I don't think this is obstruction, but if in fact that was the case, and I don't know if that's the case, but everything I'm gathering, it appears to be the case, that is where this particular order would now be. I mean, if somebody does not agree, doesn't think that's the case, then, I haven't heard that yet.
Councilor Hernandez.
Thank you. I just wanted to state that I agree 100% with my colleague here, Councilor Anderson Burgos, with the inconsistency and selectiveness that this council and what goes on in the chambers is truly devastating and demoralizing, to say the least. When they pick and choose whether it's a supermajority vote or a 7 vote or this or that, and it's so tiring, and I wish that we can move forward with consistency and that we can get clear answers on exactly how we have to proceed, and if in fact we have been voting in an inconsistent way, we should go back to all those votes that were passed incorrectly. Thank you.
Councilor Bacon.
So just to be clear, this particular order was filed in June of this year. It went to City Council. City Council sent it to Charter and Rules. It's not a game. It's not obstruction. Councilor Lisi filed the order. She knows she filed it. And we all know, if we look at our minutes and our agendas, that it was sent to Charter and Rules. That was the will of the council. We can send it anywhere, but that's where it got sent. I don't remember the particular discussion about it at the time, but that is what happened. And I mean, we all know that certain councilors are very supportive of the marijuana industry, and they're very supportive of certain councilors, but that was the will of the council, and it sits in the committee. There's no game, it's just what happened. Thank you.
So I'll just say for my part, you know, I just went through the jacket with our administrative assistant, and we were looking for all the things that seemed to, you know, be urgent and timely, and we mapped out agendas all the way through November. So this seemed to be in the jacket. It seemed to be up for grabs based on past practices, and that's why it's here. If we're hearing from Attorney Bissonnette that it's not properly before us and that the new refiled order is actually the appropriate order to work with, then I would submit to our acting mayor that perhaps we need to have a special meeting on it, given the timeline that's coming up, and that he pull it from committee and take it up as a special meeting agenda item. Because I think, again, just listening to what we heard from Attorney Bissonnette is, I think we want to be, we don't want to be caught in a position where we're caught flat-footed and we don't have the ability to take advantage of first mover position on anything related to cannabis, given the revenues that are coming in related to this industry. So I think we can say for this item that is quote unquote improperly before us, that it has, I mean, we need to dispose of it somehow, but I'm not sure what the right motion is at this point, and I would defer to Attorney Bissonnette to see if there is a recommendation or
You can just take no action on it.
and then it'll stay in the jacket. So, but we should,
Till the end of the, it'll stay in the jacket till the end of the session, but it's not an active, it would not be an active piece of legislation. All legislation dies at the end of a legislative session, whether it's the U.S. Senate, House of Representatives, Great and General Court, or the Holyoke City Council.
and so do we actually motion to take no action, or do we motion to table? I'm sorry if it's novel for me here, so.
Well, it's unusual circumstance. I would just move to table it. It's really, from a legal standpoint, it makes little difference as long as it's not passed. And that's what opens us up to some situational litigation from time to time. People take advantage of these things. It's not going to be, the city of Holyoke is going to go back through the records and determine whether everything that past councils have approved was timely filed, taken up timely, or approved within a certain amount of days. If someone does sue the city, though, those factors are what is going to be coming out in discovery, the investigative process prior to a civil trial. So those are the kinds of things we're trying to guard against. We mean no disrespect, and I just got here, so I have no idea what the internal politics are. I was asked whether or not this is okay to take up something that was filed in the previous session. And I've never heard of it, frankly. And if it's a past practice or common practice here, well, we can fix that fairly quickly in January. But moving forward, there is another vehicle and a couple other vehicles off the ordinance committee that could be amended. So there's a few ways to go, including a special meeting. I think for now, putting this on the table will pretty much end that discussion, though.
I'll make a motion, we table it.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. We are standing adjourned.